I had always thought Lila was my closest friend. "You've really outdone yourself this time," she said, sliding the report across my desk with a smile that never reached her eyes. I laughed nervously, trying to ignore the tiny knot in my stomach. "Thanks, Lila. I couldn't have done it without your input on the figures," I replied, but something in her smirk felt off. Just then Ethan appeared, leaning casually against the doorway. "Impressive work, you two. The board will love this," he said, but the way he looked at me, like I was somehow beneath him, made my stomach twist. "We've been working so hard," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It shows." Lila nodded, eyes sparkling, but I could feel a subtle tension. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was imagining things. Later at the board meeting, I waited nervously for my turn. When my name came up, the presenter, someone I barely knew, was using my ideas word for word. My stomach dropped. "This section on the quarterly projections? Brilliant. Did you come up with it?" one of the board members asked. I opened my mouth to explain, but Ethan jumped in first. "Oh, that was Lila's idea. She and I collaborated on it," he said smoothly. My heart stopped. "Wait, what?" I whispered under my breath. Lila gave a small, polite nod like she hadn't heard him. My hands shook. I wanted to scream, to pull them aside and demand the truth, but I felt frozen, betrayed. After the meeting, I cornered them in the hallway. "Ethan, Lila, what was that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Ethan looked at me, calm and charming. "It's just business, you know how it is," he said, shrugging as if my feelings didn't matter. Lila avoided my eyes. I thought you'd understand. We just wanted to make sure the project succeeded," she mumbled. "You didn't have to take my credit." I snapped, feeling tears sting my eyes. "I trusted you both. How could you do this to me?" Ethan laughed lightly, almost condescending. "Trust is a luxury in this world, sweetheart," he said. I couldn't believe the person I'd loved and the friend I'd confided in had betrayed me like this. I left the office, my chest tight, the hallway feeling impossibly long. "I can't believe it, all this time," I muttered to myself, gripping my bag so hard my knuckles ached. Every step I took felt heavy, like the ground wanted to swallow me. I replayed their words over and over, each lie cutting deeper than the last. I sat on the steps outside, staring at the gray sky, my mind racing. "No," I whispered, tears sliding down my cheeks. "I won't let this break me. I will rise again. Stronger. Smarter. Better than they ever imagined." I clenched my fists, tasting the bitterness of betrayal and the fire of determination at the same time. That night I didn't cry alone. I planned my revenge silently, promising myself that I would never be powerless again. I couldn't believe the room had turned on me so quickly. "Did you really expect anyone to believe that?" one colleague sneered, glancing at the presentation I had poured weeks into. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the table. I don't understand," I said, voice breaking. Laughter echoed around me, sharp and cruel. "Understand? You're the one who fooled yourself," another said. I felt my face burn. Marcus appeared, placing a hand gently on my shoulder. "Ignore them," he said softly. "They don't know what they're talking about." I shook my head. "They do. They all do. They've always looked down on me." My voice cracked and I wiped my tears furiously, hating myself for showing weakness. Marcus crouched to meet my eyes. "You're stronger than this. Don't let them see you fall apart." I wanted to believe him, but my stomach twisted with humiliation. A group of colleagues whispered behind their hands, glancing at me. "Isn't that the girl who messed up the quarterly report?" one murmured. I clenched my fists. "I didn't mess up," I hissed under my breath, but it sounded hollow even to me. Marcus's voice broke through the chaos again. "Let's step outside. You need air." I followed him, trembling, rage and despair warring inside me. "I trusted them," I muttered as we walked. "All of them. And they lied, laughed, and used me." Marcus nodded, frowning. "Trust can be dangerous in this world, but you can survive it. You just need to step back and plan your next move." I swallowed hard, the taste of bitterness thick in my mouth. "Next move," I whispered, almost to myself. "I don't even know if I can face them again." Marcus's gaze was steady. "Then don't. Not yet. But you will. I promise you'll come back stronger." I left the conference room, avoiding eye contact, feeling the weight of judgment pressing down. How could they all turn on me? I muttered, trying to hold back tears. My office felt empty, alien. My chair, my desk, even the walls seemed to mock me. Maybe it's time to leave, I whispered. My fingers hovered over my bag strap as I walked toward the elevator. Leave and rebuild, I told myself. Fear clawed at my chest, but beneath it, a spark of determination burned. The elevator doors closed with a soft thud, and I stared at my reflection in the polished metal. I won't be the same, I whispered. I'll be smarter, stronger, and they'll regret underestimating me. My hands tightened around my bag as the numbers ticked down. I stepped out on the lobby floor, the noise of the city outside calling me forward. I inhaled sharply. Freedom, fear, and possibility mingled, leaving me dizzy but alive. I pushed open the glass doors and walked into the sunlight, ready to leave the past behind and start again. I closed the door to my apartment and sank onto the couch, staring at the blank wall. Why did it have to be like this? I whispered to myself. The betrayal still felt fresh, stabbing at my chest. I hugged my knees, wishing I could rewind time, wishing I had seen it coming. I trusted them. How could I be so stupid? I muttered, tears threatening to fall. A knock at the door startled me. Hey, it's Sarah, your neighbor, a cheerful voice said. I wiped my eyes and forced a small smile. Come in, I said quietly. She stepped inside, holding a tray with 2 cups of tea. You looked upset earlier. Thought you might need this, she said gently. I accepted the cup, fumbling with my hands. Thanks, I whispered. I guess everything's falling apart. Sarah sat down beside me. You know, everyone goes through moments like this, she said. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just means you need a plan. I looked at her, confused. A plan? I echoed. I can't even think straight. I don't know where to start. She smiled softly. Start small. Think about what you want. Not what they took from you, but what you want for yourself. I sipped my tea and thought about her words. Could I really rebuild? I've been thinking, I said after a moment. Maybe I shouldn't focus on revenge. Maybe I need to focus on me, on building something that's mine. Sarah nodded. Exactly. You have the talent. You just need a way to channel it. You can do this. Her encouragement lit a small spark inside me, something I hadn't felt in weeks. I set the cup down. I could start my own venture, small at first. Something that I control. Something no one can take from me. Sarah leaned back, smiling. That's the spirit. And I'll be here to cheer you on if you want. I laughed softly, a little shaky but genuine. Thank you, Sarah. I think I needed someone to tell me that it's possible. I stared out the window, imagining a future where I wasn't defined by betrayal, where I was stronger, smarter, and unstoppable. The road would be long, but I felt the first real stirrings of hope. I can do this, I whispered to myself, the seed of determination taking root in my chest. I stared at my laptop screen late into the night, scrolling through stories of people who had risen after being crushed. They did it. Maybe I can too, I whispered to myself, fingers tapping nervously on the keyboard. The words felt like sparks, tiny fires in the dark corners of my mind. I opened a new email to Marcus. I think I'm ready to learn more, I typed. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. I'm proud of you, Marcus's message read. Meet me tomorrow and I'll guide you step by step. My heart raced. The next day, Marcus leaned over my desk. Networking is everything, he said. You have talent, but you need people who can see it too. I nodded, swallowing a lump in my throat. I know, but I don't want to be obvious. I can't risk anyone sabotaging me again. He smiled faintly. Smart. Be quiet, be careful, and let your work speak first. Reputation follows action, not words. I jotted notes, feeling a strange mix of excitement and fear. Could I really pull this off without getting hurt again? Later, I tried reaching out to a few online mentors. Hi, I'm starting a small project. Can you give me some advice? I typed, my fingers shaking. Each response I received filled me with cautious hope. Of course, one wrote. Focus on what you can control. Build slowly. Celebrate small wins. I smiled, whispering, small wins. I can do that. The idea of a tiny, controlled project began to feel real, tangible, something I could touch without being crushed by betrayal. I spent hours learning the basics: spreadsheets, market research, networking etiquette. This is harder than I thought, I muttered one night, frustrated at my mistakes. Marcus's voice echoed in my mind. Mistakes teach you more than success ever will. I sighed, leaning back. Okay, one step at a time. Slowly, my confidence grew. I started to plan secretly, sketching out a project no one knew about. Each line, each calculation felt like a small act of defiance, proof that I still had power. Weeks passed and the project slowly took shape. I tested it quietly with a few trusted friends. It's amazing what you've done, Sarah said, smiling. I knew you could do this. I laughed softly, almost disbelieving. I didn't think I had it in me, I admitted. Then I realized something I had. The first tiny success, the first sign that I could rise again, reminded me of my worth. Marcus called the next day. I heard about your project. Excellent work. This is just the beginning, he said. I grinned, feeling pride and determination mingling in my chest. It's a start, I whispered. A start I'm not letting go of. That night I closed my laptop and sat back, heart racing. I had begun the climb, tiny steps at first, but real. I felt the spark of ambition burning bright, the spark that would eventually turn into an unstoppable fire. And for the first time in months, I smiled at the possibility of winning, not just against them but for myself. The room was buzzing with chatter and laughter, but all I could see were them. Lila and Ethan, standing at the center of the crowd, laughing like nothing had happened. I took a deep breath and approached, keeping my smile polite. Lila, Ethan, it's been a while, I said smoothly. Lila turned, eyes widening for just a second before her usual confident mask returned. Oh, I didn't expect to see you here, she said, voice light. Ethan's smirk was the same, charming and irritating all at once. You look different, he said. I nodded, meeting his gaze. I guess life changes people. They invited me to join their table, and I sat down, carefully measuring every word. So, tell me, how have things been for you? Ethan asked casually. I let my eyes drift over their expensive suits, their bragging smiles. Busy, I said simply. I've been working on some projects. Keeping myself occupied. Lila raised a brow. Projects? That sounds intriguing. I smiled faintly. Small beginnings but promising. You know how it is starting fresh. I kept my tone calm, careful not to reveal the ambitions burning inside me. That's when Damien appeared, stepping smoothly between us. I couldn't help but notice your conversation, he said, voice low and smooth, eyes scanning me with something I couldn't quite read. You have an interesting energy. I like people who can see beyond what's in front of them. My heart skipped, but I nodded politely. Thank you. I've learned a lot recently. He smiled slightly, leaning closer. I think you have potential. You just need the right direction. I felt a spark of excitement, tempered by caution. And how would you suggest I find that? I asked softly. The conversation continued, blending casual words with subtle tests. Lila laughed. You always seem so composed even when things get messy. I smiled at her. Composure is useful, especially when people underestimate you. Ethan frowned slightly but said nothing. Inside, I was calculating, thinking about how to turn every word into a future advantage. I told myself, patience. Smile but don't give everything away. Damien leaned in, lowering his voice. I like your mind. If you ever want guidance or investment, I'm easy to reach. I nodded, hiding the excitement bubbling inside. I'll remember that. Thank you. He walked away, leaving me with a quiet thrill. Lila and Ethan continued talking, oblivious to the quiet fire in me. I felt a mix of satisfaction and hunger. I'll rise again, I whispered inwardly, and when I do, they'll wish they'd never crossed me. By the time I left the event, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger, hope and determination. The first seeds of my plan were planted, carefully and quietly. I had learned patience. I had learned discretion. And most importantly, I had learned that power was something I could reclaim piece by piece, while they flaunted their hollow victories. The night air felt electric as I walked home, already thinking about my next move, already imagining the day I would stand above them. The first morning I stepped into the office of my own venture, I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. "It's real," I whispered, touching the edge of my desk. Marcus appeared behind me, smiling. "Congratulations. This is your first step toward something bigger." I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Thank you. I hope I can handle it." He chuckled softly. "You can. Just remember, patience and strategy outweigh panic." Later, Damien joined me with a folder in hand. "I've reviewed your plan," he said, sliding it across the table. "It's solid. I'll fund the first stage, but you need to be meticulous. No mistakes." I met his gaze steadily. "I understand. Every decision will be calculated." His lips twitched into a faint smile. "Good. I like that. Let's see how far you can go." I felt a surge of pride, but I reminded myself to stay humble. Every step counts. Every misstep could ruin it. Sarah came by that afternoon with coffee. "How's the empire building going?" she asked brightly. I laughed softly, feeling comforted by her presence. "It's harder than I imagined. Competitors are ruthless, and finances are tighter than I expected." She set the coffee down beside me. "You'll figure it out. You always do. And I'll be here to remind you when you doubt yourself." I smiled at her encouragement. "Thank you, Sarah. I think I need reminders more than I thought." The first challenge came quickly. One of our suppliers delivered faulty materials. "This will delay everything," I muttered, staring at the boxes. Marcus placed a hand on my shoulder. "Adapt. That's what separates winners from quitters. Find a backup and keep moving." I nodded, dialing the next supplier immediately. "I can't let a setback stop me," I told myself. "Every obstacle is a chance to prove I can do this." Damien checked in later, concern in his eyes. "I heard about the supplier issue. Did you handle it?" I met his gaze firmly. "Yes. I found alternatives and shifted priorities. Nothing will stop this project." He studied me a moment. "Good. That's the determination I expected. Keep it. It's what will make you unstoppable." My chest swelled with pride. Yet I also felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. Then came sabotage attempts, emails leaked, competitors trying to poach clients. I confronted one team member quietly. "Did you know about these leaks?" I asked softly, eyes narrowing. They stammered, shaking their head. "No. I swear I didn't." I held up a hand. "Be careful. I don't need mistakes. I need loyalty." The fear in their eyes reminded me that power comes from respect, not fear alone. By the end of the month, our first project launched successfully. "We did it," I whispered, leaning back in my chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Marcus appeared, a proud smile on his face. "I told you this was possible. You handled every obstacle with grace and intelligence." Damien nodded in agreement when he joined us. "And you've earned my trust. Keep building this way, and nothing will stand in your path." I glanced at Sarah, who gave me a small thumbs up. I laughed softly, thinking of Lila and Ethan, unaware that I was quietly outshining them. "This is just the beginning," I told myself. "And I'm unstoppable now." I found out by accident. "Have you heard what's happening with Ethan's company?" Marcus asked casually over the phone. My heart skipped. "No," I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. "What about it?" He paused. "They're losing clients. Bad decisions, internal fights. Someone leaked financial reports." I swallowed. "Someone betrayed them?" I asked quietly. Marcus sighed. "Looks that way. Poor leadership always catches up eventually." I hung up and sat in silence. "So this is karma," I whispered to myself. A part of me smiled, sharp and bitter. They deserve it. Then another part of me twisted with guilt. But do they? I shook my head, confused by my own thoughts. I opened my laptop and scrolled through industry news. Headlines hinted at chaos, instability, and whispers of scandal. I leaned back. "You did this to yourselves," I murmured. Later that evening, Sarah knocked on my door. "You look distracted," she said, stepping inside. I hesitated, then spoke. "Lila and Ethan. Things are falling apart for them." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "And how does that make you feel?" I laughed softly, without humor. "Satisfied. Angry. Guilty. All at once." She crossed her arms. Do you want revenge, or do you want peace? Her words hit harder than I expected. I don't know, I admitted. The next week, I attended another industry event, staying near the edges. I overheard whispers. Their investors are furious. Someone inside turned on them. Ethan can't control his team. I sipped my drink, invisible, listening. Lila walked past me, pale and tense, arguing on the phone. You promised me loyalty, she hissed. No, this isn't my fault. I almost laughed. Now you know how it feels, I thought. Marcus found me later. You're quiet tonight, he said. I shrugged. I'm watching consequences unfold. He studied my face. You could step in, you know. Push them over faster. My fingers tightened around my glass. I've thought about it, I admitted. I know exactly how to expose them. Marcus nodded slowly. But, I exhaled. But if I do, I become them. That night I couldn't sleep. If I destroy them, will I feel better? I asked the ceiling. Memories replayed. My humiliation, their lies, their laughter. They never apologized, I whispered. My chest tightened. They never cared. I sat up, heart pounding. But I care about who I'm becoming. The answer scared me, but it felt right. A few days later, Damien called. Interesting developments, he said calmly. Your former partners are unraveling. I stayed silent. You're handling this well, he continued. Most people would strike. I replied softly. I already won by surviving. He paused. That restraint will take you far. I watched from a distance as their empire cracked, piece by piece. I said nothing. I revealed nothing. I simply moved forward. Let karma finish the job, I whispered, closing my laptop. For the first time, revenge felt unnecessary. Their downfall wasn't mine to claim. My power was in walking away stronger, untouched, and finally free. I couldn't believe what I was seeing on my laptop. Nina, I whispered, staring at the email she'd sent to our competitors. You did this. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't click delete or reply in a rush. Instead, I closed the laptop and took a deep breath. Not this time. I won't lose control. I found her in the break room, casually sipping coffee. We need to talk, I said, my voice calm but firm. She raised an eyebrow. About what? I held her gaze. About the emails to our competitors. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Her smirk faltered for a second, but she quickly masked it. It's just business strategy. You know that. I shook my head slowly. No, Nina. That's sabotage. And I trusted you. She laughed nervously. You're overreacting. It's harmless. I was just trying to... I interrupted, voice low and steady. Trying to what? Undermine everything I've built? You think loyalty is optional? Her smile faltered. I didn't mean. I held up a hand. Stop. I'm not here to scream. I'm here to make sure you understand the consequences. I have patience. I have control. Don't test me again. Nina looked at me, eyes wide now, realizing the shift. I just thought I could help us get ahead faster, she stammered. I leaned in slightly. Help? By betraying me? By risking everything we built? That's not help. That's destruction. She swallowed hard, looking down at her hands. I miscalculated, she admitted quietly. I nodded, satisfied that she understood, but inside I felt a flicker of sadness. It hurt to see betrayal again, but I refused to let it break me. Marcus called me later that day. I heard about Nina. Are you okay? I smiled faintly, trying to sound composed. I'm fine. I handled it. Privately. Calmly. This time, I didn't let anger make the decisions. His tone was approving. That's growth. Real growth. I felt pride mix with the residual sting of betrayal. It's strange, I said, almost to myself. It hurts, but I'm stronger. Wiser. I'm not the same person who trusted blindly. That evening I sat alone in my office, reviewing our project timeline. Nina had apologized, her loyalty shaken, but I didn't immediately forgive her. Trust must be earned, I muttered. Not given freely. I thought of Lila, Ethan, and now Nina, realizing how much I had changed. My heart was tougher, my mind sharper. I no longer felt like a victim, I felt like a strategist, a survivor. I poured a cup of tea and leaned back in my chair. I can't control other people, I whispered. But I can control myself. That simple thought gave me clarity I'd never had before. Betrayal no longer had the power to destroy me. Instead, it sharpened me, molded me into someone capable of navigating this ruthless world. I was no longer the naive, trusting woman I had once been. I was deliberate, prepared, and unstoppable. The office buzzed with energy, but this time it was my energy. I can't believe how fast this is growing, Marcus said, leaning against my desk. I smiled faintly, pride warming my chest. It's not just growth, I said. It's recognition. People are starting to respect what I've built. He nodded. You earned it. And you're leading with intelligence, not just ambition. I laughed softly. I learned from my mistakes. I won't let my past define me. Damien appeared then, a file in hand. I've reviewed the latest projections, he said. Your strategy is solid. You're attracting clients and keeping them loyal. That's rare. I met his gaze steadily. Thank you. I've been careful. Every decision calculated. He smirked faintly. Careful and ambitious. That combination will take you far. I felt a thrill, tempered by the memory of Lila and Ethan. They'll see this eventually. They'll see how far I've come. Later, Marcus leaned over my shoulder as I organized a high-profile pitch. Make sure the presentation is sharp. Visibility matters, he advised. I nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard. They're going to notice, I said quietly, a subtle plan forming. And not just anyone. I want Lila and Ethan to hear about this one. He raised a brow. Bit of poetic justice? I shrugged. Maybe. Or maybe just proof that I survived and thrived while they crumbled. The event came, and I watched from the back as the room applauded my team's presentation. Incredible work, a client said, shaking my hand. I smiled, keeping my composure. Then I caught sight of Lila and Ethan across the room, eyes narrowing, recognition dawning. A quiet satisfaction surged inside me, mixed with a familiar ache. They see it, I whispered. They see everything I've accomplished. Damien leaned close. You planned that, didn't you? He asked with a knowing smile. I shrugged casually. I believe in letting results speak. Some people need to witness them to understand. He nodded approvingly. Smart. Restraint and strategy. Exactly what makes leaders successful. I glanced at Marcus, who gave me a small thumbs up. Pride and gratitude mingled inside me. I couldn't have done it alone, I admitted softly. That night I sat in my office reviewing emails and client responses. The praise was overwhelming, yet a shadow lingered. I should feel lighter, I muttered, staring at the glowing screen. But the past still whispers. I thought of Lila's smug smile and Ethan's charm. Bittersweet, I whispered, tasting both joy and lingering resentment. I realized then that rising power didn't erase memory. It amplified resolve. I survived. I thrived. And they'll remember me. Not as the naive woman I once was, but as someone unstoppable. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence settle around me. The empire was growing, my confidence soaring, and my heart felt the first true blend of pride and determination. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was leading, shaping my destiny, and silently, powerfully, outshining those who had once betrayed me. I spotted them across the gala hall, Lila laughing with a group of clients, Ethan standing beside her, chest puffed with pride. My chest tightened, but I walked toward them steadily, heels clicking against the marble floor. Lila, Ethan, I said, voice calm but carrying over the murmur of the crowd. They turned, smiles faltering for a fraction of a second. Oh, hi, Lila said, clearly caught off guard. Ethan's lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't expect to see you here, he said, his charm faltering. I smiled, not sweetly but deliberately. Neither did I expect to hear about your recent financial missteps, I said, letting the words hang. Lila's eyes widened. What are you talking about? I tilted my head, maintaining composure. Oh, I'm sure you remember all those promises about transparency and trust with your investors. Funny how some things unravel when you cut corners and spread false narratives. Ethan's jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're implying, he said. I leaned in slightly, voice measured. I do. I remember who claimed my work as theirs, who laughed at my failures, who tried to bury me under lies. And yet, here I am. Lila looked down at her hands, swallowing hard. We didn't mean to. I held up a hand. I'm not here to attack you, Lila. I'm here to show you the results of your choices. I gestured subtly toward a screen displaying my company's latest achievement. Recognition from the same industry leaders who had once doubted me. Ethan's eyes flickered over it. How did you? I interrupted, calm, controlled. Careful planning. Hard work. Integrity. Things you apparently forgot exist. I let the silence stretch, giving them time to absorb the sting without adding venom. Their faces betrayed shock, a flash of regret, a hint of fear. It's impressive, Lila said quietly, voice trembling. I nodded, soft but firm. Thank you. And I hope it reminds you that deceit and betrayal eventually catch up with anyone. Ethan's lips parted, searching for words. I never meant. I shook my head slightly. Intentions don't erase outcomes. You know that better than anyone. The hall felt strangely quiet around us. I could feel my pulse racing, anger and sorrow twisting in my chest, but I refused to let them see me break. Instead, I drew a deep breath. I'm beyond them, beyond their lies. I'm finally free. Lila's gaze dropped to the floor, shame and fear mixing in her eyes. Ethan looked like he wanted to say something else, but no words came. I gave them one last measured smile, full of dignity and quiet triumph. I wish you well, I said, voice steady. Truly. But remember this, your choices define you. My life, my company, my success, they are mine, earned, untouchable. I turned and walked away, heels clicking once more against the floor. Relief and a strange lightness filled me. The anger that had simmered for months, the sorrow I carried like a shadow, even the thrill of seeing them falter. It all coalesced into something final. Closure. I no longer needed revenge to prove my worth. I had proven it by surviving, thriving, and standing tall before them. My chest expanded with calm power. I was done with them, done with the past, and ready for everything that lay ahead. I sat in my office, the city lights casting a soft glow across my desk, and let myself breathe. I made it, I whispered quietly, more to myself than anyone else. Months ago, I would have never imagined this moment. Betrayal, humiliation, endless sleepless nights. They all seemed like shadows that would never leave me. But now I felt the weight lift, replaced by a quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. Sarah walked in, holding 2 cups of tea. You look different, she said, smiling. I laughed softly, accepting a cup. I am different, I admitted. It took losing everything to realize what matters. She nodded knowingly. You've grown. Stronger, wiser. And yet, still the same compassionate person I met when we first talked. I smiled, warmth spreading through my chest. I've learned to balance both, I said. I can be strong without being cruel, determined without being ruthless. Marcus appeared shortly after, leaning casually against the doorway. So this is the new you, he said with a faint grin. I shrugged. Maybe. I finally understand what power really means. It isn't revenge. It's control over my life, my choices, and my reactions. He nodded approvingly. Exactly. You survived, you thrived, and you kept your integrity intact. That's rare. I leaned back, letting his words sink in. I realized something, I said softly. The satisfaction I thought I wanted from revenge is nothing compared to the calm of knowing I can trust myself. Sarah smiled. You've come a long way. Do you ever think about the past, the betrayals, the lies? I paused, thinking of Lila, Ethan, Nina, and all the others who had tried to break me. I do, I said finally. But I don't dwell on it. Those events shaped me, but they don't define me anymore. I've learned to take the lessons without carrying the pain. Marcus nodded. And that's the real transformation. Real power comes from self-mastery, not destroying others. I sipped my tea, letting the warmth fill me. I used to think success meant proving them wrong, I admitted. Now I know it's proving myself right. Proving that I'm resilient, capable, and worthy of respect, without letting anger control me. Sarah reached out, giving my hand a gentle squeeze. And you've done it beautifully. You're an inspiration. I laughed softly, a hint of disbelief in my tone. Maybe. Or maybe I just finally stopped letting the world dictate my happiness. Marcus leaned closer, voice gentle. You've built more than a company. You've built confidence, strategy, and emotional strength. You've transformed pain into growth. I nodded slowly, eyes glistening. I always thought I needed them to see me succeed, I confessed. But now I know the only validation that matters is my own. My choices, my strength, my control. The night deepened outside, and I looked around at the quiet office that felt more like a sanctuary than a workplace. I survived betrayal, I whispered, smiling faintly. I survived humiliation. And I survived myself. That's real victory. Sarah and Marcus exchanged smiles, silent acknowledgement of how far I'd come. I set down my tea feeling complete. I was no longer defined by the past, nor haunted by its shadows. I was empowered, whole, and ready for whatever came next. My journey had transformed me from a woman crushed by betrayal into one who thrived on resilience, self-worth, and inner strength. I walked through the gleaming halls of my office, the quiet hum of productivity filling the air. It's incredible how far we've come, I whispered to myself, glancing at my team moving efficiently around me. Marcus appeared, leaning casually against a doorway. It is, he said, smiling. You've built something impressive. Not just a company but a legacy. I chuckled softly, shaking my head. I never imagined I'd be here when everything was falling apart months ago. He nodded knowingly. You turned betrayal into fuel, heartbreak into strategy. That's rare. Most people crumble. You thrived. I smiled faintly, thinking about the long nights, the doubts, and the small victories that kept me moving forward. I've learned that control over myself matters more than control over others, I said. Power is meaningless if you lose yourself chasing revenge. Marcus grinned. Exactly. You've mastered the real game. Sarah walked in carrying a folder. Some recognition just arrived, she said, handing it to me. I opened it and smiled as I read through the award letters and client commendations. I guess we've made a mark, I murmured. She laughed softly. You've made more than a mark. You've set a standard. I looked at her, gratitude in my eyes. I couldn't have done it without reminders that I'm stronger than I think. Later that afternoon, I caught sight of Lila and Ethan in a news feature, barely holding on to their reputation. I felt no joy in their downfall, only a quiet acknowledgement. They were always short-sighted, I murmured. Their choices caught up with them naturally. Marcus appeared beside me, nodding. Karma does its work. You don't need to interfere. That's real justice. I smiled, feeling the relief that came with letting go of old grudges. I am beyond needing revenge. I am free. I paused at my desk, noticing a neatly folded envelope with my name on it. Marcus had left it for me. Inside was a simple letter, words written carefully. Remember how far you've come. Never forget the fire that got you here, and the woman you became through it. You were always meant to rise. I traced the words with my finger, the memory of the frightened, betrayed girl I once was flooding back. You made it, I whispered, tears threatening but restrained. You finally made it. That night I stood by the window looking out at the city lights. I survived betrayal, I said softly. I survived humiliation, loss, and doubt. I survived myself. Sarah's voice came gently from behind me. And you've become someone remarkable. I turned, smiling. Not remarkable, just real. Just resilient. She nodded. Sometimes being real is the greatest achievement. I laughed quietly, thinking of every lesson etched into my journey. The empire I built was no longer just a company. It was proof of my transformation, the tangible result of resilience, strategy, and unwavering self-worth. I felt the final release of the anger and sorrow that had haunted me, replaced by a calm satisfaction. Lila and Ethan faded from my thoughts completely, their lessons absorbed without malice. I closed my eyes, letting the glow of accomplishment and inner peace wash over me. The woman I was, the woman I had become, and the life I had built, everything aligned perfectly. I had risen, I had triumphed, and I was finally whole.